Hello, America. It looks like the Democrats are starting to catch on. Maybe if they had a more diverse bench, they would win more elections, you say? I agree completely, and apparently so does the DCCC. But their base? Not so much. So let's begin it there right now. You're watching and listening to the Garrison Douglas Show.
Center for everything that is political and American. You're listening to the Garrison Douglas Show.
All right, welcome to the program, everybody. Welcome to the Garrison Douglas Show. The Democrats, I gotta hand to them. They made a move that I was not expecting them to make. They are deciding to become more diverse in their ideology. It was an unforeseen move. Now, I'm saying this, not the party as a whole, but just Democratic leaders. It's looking like the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee chairman has said that there is not going to be a litmus test for Democratic candidates. He said, as we look at candidates across the country, you need to make sure you have candidates that fit the district, that can win in these districts across America. He said to pick up 24 seats and to get to 218, that is the job. We'll need a broad coalition to get that done. We're going to need all of that. We have to be a big family in order to win the House back. That sounds like it makes sense to me. It's what I've been saying for a long time, and it makes plenty of sense. You cannot run East Coast candidates in Southern states. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to work. This has been something that the Democrats have been struggling with for quite a while. They want this party purity type thing. And it's just not going to work. It just doesn't go the way they want it to. And Joe Scarborough from Morning Joe had picked up on this after there have been attacks on a Omaha mayor or candidate for mayor in Omaha, Nebraska. So let's go ahead and see what Joe Scarborough said.
If you want to pick the perfect candidate to win in Tennessee, in Nebraska, in red states, you get a Democratic mayor who's liked in the business community and who is culturally aligned with the district where he's running. This guy may not even be culturally aligned. They're going back 8 years ago. He agreed to a bill that said a doctor could tell a woman she had a right to have an ultrasound. And for that, they're blowing up the party. Right. These are not people that want to be in charge of the House and the Senate again.
Joe has a point here. And this has been something that I've been saying for a while. The Democratic Party has this issue with party or political purity, where everyone has to agree on everything. It's baffling how they witness Republicans get into power with this diverse bench of people. And so their reaction is to tighten the ship. To say, no, we are not going to accept people who not are pro-life, not even going to that extent, but as Joe was talking about in this clip, it was this Omaha mayoral candidate, just merely saying that doctors should be able to let you know you could have an ultrasound of a baby before you have an abortion. That in itself was enough to jeopardize the pro-choice movement. And so I just It's very upsetting. I mean, should be told, I could care less if Democrats get into power or not. That's not my party. That's not my group. I don't agree with now, essentially, most of the issues that they're promoting. But I'm just speaking politically here. If you want to get back in control, you have to listen to these people. You have to listen to Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Bernie Sanders, who have finally caught up and have all agreed and said that there can't be a litmus test on abortion for Democratic candidates. Now, Democrats are just, the base, voters are just blowing up in disgust, in anger, and rage, saying, how dare you say that we are going to allow and fund pro-life candidates? How dare you? You are threatening the very fiber of the party and the very fiber of the women's movement. Do you not care about us? It doesn't make sense. It's not based in any sort of reality. Let's think about it. We're talking about Congress. Specifically, the United States House of Representatives. What does representative mean to these people? What does representative mean to Democrats? I could say what the definition is. I don't know if that's exactly what it means to them, but this is what the definition says. A representative is defined as a person chosen or appointed to act or speak for another or others on particular issues. Now, if majority of a district says that they are in favor of pro-life policies, their representative should represent them. Am I right? That's what the term representative means. They should represent and speak on their behalf on these issues. So, how can you expect to run an East Coast Democrat in Alabama or Georgia and expect to win? How is that even making sense to you? And how does that even seem like the rightful thing to do? To take the values of California and New York and impose it on small rural cities in America, or massive metropolitan areas in the South. How does that make sense? How does that seem like the right thing to do? You're going to want to send people to these districts who don't represent their values? How does that... Think about that. How does that make sense? But apparently it doesn't matter. Because the Democrats for America, or DFA for short, responded to Lujan, who is the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee chairman. And they responded with a massive email condemning this announcement. It was a big email. And the most crazy part in the email was when they said, "It is profoundly disturbing to hear the person tasked with helping Democrats take back the House suggest that our party can credibly talk about confronting economic inequity while turning a blind eye to candidates who want to limit women's rights to control their own bodies. Abortion rights are inextricably tied to the fight against economic and racial inequity. Full stop. And until all leaders of our party fully understand that we're going to keep losing." I admit I tricked you there. I read further than I was supposed to. That's why I ended the way I did. Let's rephrase that. And until all leaders of our party fully understand that, we're going to keep losing. They didn't there was no punctuation there. I kind of just assumed it was going to keep going. So, that's what they said. Essentially, abortion is this necessary evil that we must accept. and I'm not going to, dive into this, but, just for giggles here, when you consider that black children are aborted at a rate roughly 3 times of white ones, one has to wonder what the true intentions are behind this sort of overcrazed, fanatical commitment to abortion. But that's a conversation for another day. We won't have that discussion now. But let's think about the sense behind not having a litmus test on abortion for Democratic candidates. Not saying, yes, we are going to allow pro-life candidates, because you are going to want, in Nebraska and Georgia, you're going to want individuals who agree with you on economic issues, who agree with you fiscally, but represent their district's values socially. But this is just a continued trend that Democrats feel that in order to win, they need to become more progressive. Think of the insanity of that statement for a moment. They have to become more progressive to win. Imagine if Republicans lost a congressional seat in liberal California, and their response was, oh gosh, I guess it was because we were too liberal. We should probably go further to the right. Then we'll win. You would look at the party and think that they had gone bonkers. You lost in California because you were too conservative. Just like you're losing in southern conservative states, red states, because you're too liberal. And you're not representing the values that they hold. This is the United States of America for a reason. It means that there are people who live in the South, there are people who live in the North, and they're not always going to share the same exact values on every single issue. So we try and find up with a compromise to include everyone's values, to keep everyone in the fold. And if we can't, majorities go to rule in the country. But that doesn't mean that they should have to settle for representation that doesn't represent their values. Because essentially what the party is doing, what Democrats have been trying to do, is send their people to these districts and essentially dictate to their voters, you must believe in this. And if you don't believe in this, you are a misogynist. You hate women. That's what the Democrats are doing. They're trying to send these people to these districts to guilt trip everybody. And guilty people don't vote. That's never been a well-established factor in voting. That if you feel guilty on a certain issue, you'll feel incentivized to go vote. You just feel depressed is really what happens. And depressed people don't tend to want to vote. There's not really an incentive for them to want to vote. But all of this, to me, just proves that the Democrats' messaging on economics is exactly what I said. They're just buying votes. Think about that, because if you really think about it, what they're saying is, if only we offer more free stuff, then we would win more seats. Because that's what they're saying, that's what a lot of people are saying with Bernie Sanders. We lost that election because we didn't talk enough about giving out free health care. We didn't talk enough about, or we didn't dive into the idea of free college for everyone. And this goes back to what I was saying on tax reform a couple episodes ago. Democrats want to use the tax dollars of hardworking Americans to buy middle and lower class votes. That's what this is all about. how do you expect for them to give out those free phones? How do you expect for Democrats to give out free college tuition for everybody? How do you expect for Democrats to give free health care to everybody? Where's that money coming from? It's coming from taxes. And they're saying the only way to get votes is by bringing those issues to the table. Saying, oh yeah, the only way we can win is if we keep making things free. Because the other party, they want to make you pay for things. So we're going to pay for it. We're basically bribing you. If you vote for us, we'll make things free for you. They're buying seats. And they have the nerve, they have the unmitigated gall to condemn party leaders who say, well, we should probably start accepting pro-life candidates into the party as well. We should have more diversity among our base. The party of diversity, quote unquote, supposed to accept everybody, doesn't want to accept those type of people into their party. Ironic. Instead, they want to focus on identity politics. Instead, they want to focus on economic myths, like the pay gap, which is an issue that's been slowly creeping back up. And as the campaign season for 2018 gets ready to kick off, I want to provide some rebuff. I want to rebut some of the statements made on the issue of the gender pay gap. First, I'm thinking back to the campaign trail, 2016, when Hillary Clinton, I believe, was the nominee at this proportion. She had she was hosting a town hall debate or town hall meeting among voters, and I believe it was 9 or 10 years old. I think it was a 9-year-old had asked Hillary why her mother, who was a teacher, was making less than her father, who was an engineer. And the crowd laughed, and they laughed, and they're like, oh, this is so cute. And it is cute. I love seeing kids get engaged in politics at all ages. It's cute. And I laughed when I heard the question because, to be honest, that's exactly what I would expect a 9-year-old to ask. Especially if they're constantly hearing the whole equal pay for equal work, equal pay for equal work, but have no real understanding of the economy. The 9-year-old was saying, you know, my mom as a teacher works harder, I believe, than my father, therefore she should make more money. And while that might be true, and I already know teachers work a crap ton of hours, they work a heck of a lot, but that's not what the pay is based off of. Pay has never been based off of, at least in capitalistic societies, has never been based off of the amount of hours that you work. The free market determines what your pay value is worth. That's how it works. And I'm not expecting a 9-year-old to know this, but everyone else in the crowd did, and Hillary Clinton knew that a teacher is going to make less than an engineer, and it had nothing to do with gender, but she took it anyways. And the reason why is because the question is actually one of the many reasons why there is the quote-unquote gender pay gap that Democrats and feminists keep talking about. And I say that meaning that disparity, or failing to account for professions, is what leads to statistically a gender pay gap. Using the statistic that women make 78 cents on the dollar as evidence of rampant discrimination has been debunked over and over again. Mainly because that statistic, as I said before, doesn't take into account a lot of choices that men and women both make individually. Hannah Rosen, author of The End of Men, wrote on this very issue, saying, the official Bureau of Labor Department statistics showed that the median earning of full-time female workers is 77% of the median earnings of full-time male workers. Which is true. You can verify that on BLS.gov, I believe is, Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's where you would view it. And you can find that there. But that is very different than 70 cents on the dollar for doing the same work as men. The latter gives the impression that a man and a woman standing next to each other doing the same job for the same number of hours gets paid different salaries. And that is not the case at all. Full-time officially means 35 hours, but men work more hours than women. That's the first problem. Oftentimes, you're talking about, we could be comparing men working 40 hours to women who are working 35. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, on weekdays, men work longer hours than women. They work a total of 8.4 hours compared to women who are working 7.8 hours. The gender pay gap also refuses to take into consideration the fact that women oftentimes choose lower paying professions. I remember the White House under both the President Trump and President Obama, they both have pay gap issues among genders. That was what was reported. And it's true, they do. When you put it in this Democrat, leftist, feminist kind of mindset, yeah, they would. And the reason why, what they fail to look into, is the fact that over 95% of the lower paying jobs in the White House were being applied for by women, which would fall into the national average. Nearly half of all working women, which comes out to 44.4%, nearly half of all working women, employed in just 20 occupations. It's a crowded field for women. And those occupations include positions like secretaries, administrative assistants, registered nurses, and school teachers, versus men crowded into a field of 20 occupations, which included, it was 38.4% among men who crowded into those 20 positions, and their positions oftentimes were managers, supervisors, self-employment. So you're talking about people who would dictate their own hours and their own pay. So when you're accounting for professional, let's think about it. Secretaries, according to Glassdoor, make anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 if they're, in a more high scale business. Sometimes it could drop to, the 20s. Administrative assistants, about the same thing, 35 to 40. Registered nurses, that increases because now we're getting to the medical field. Registered nurses can make six-figure salaries, anywhere from, 70, 80 to over 100. That can happen. And school teachers, we already know, don't make a lot of money. Some districts you're making 45, some districts you're making 50, but a lot of districts you're making between, 30 and 37.5. So $37,500 a year for a school teacher, compared to managers who are making 60 to 80. Business owners, if they have a successful small business, they're pulling six-figure salaries. Doctors who are pulling six-figure salaries. A lot of high-paid positions are being taken by men. Can you legislate that? Can you mandate that all women must be employed in higher paying jobs? Is that what we're going to do? Folks, there's a reason why when Democrats were in power and have been in power in the past, they've done nothing to fix the gender pay gap. I'm not saying they haven't signed legislation and executive actions and all that kind of stuff, but I'm saying why, after all the efforts, quote unquote, that the Democrats have done to fight against the gender pay gap, why is it that, going based off what they're saying, women receive 77 cents on the dollar for doing the same work as men? How is that possible? Why are we seeing no progression? Why are we seeing no growth or real growth in that area if we're writing legislation after legislation, signing executive order after executive order? Why aren't we seeing any, return, folks? Return on our investments. Why aren't we seeing any of that? The reason why we haven't seen anything, the reason why we haven't seen Democrats in power doing anything to fix this quote-unquote gender pay gap is because there's nothing to fix. It is a lie. It is a lie and myth perpetrated by Democrats to make Republicans and conservatives seem anti-women, anti-freedom, anti-liberty, and make them look like misogynists. It creates a division during elections that they need. Because when you say women deserve equal pay for equal work, well, yeah, you gosh darn right they should. And they do. But if you say that, meaning talking about the gender pay gap to a Republican, they're going to say, yeah, they should, but it doesn't exist. It already happens. And they're going to say, nope, 70 cents on the dollar. And they're going to say, no, that's not true. And then they're going to look like a misogynist. They're going to look like an anti-women. Because they're going to be asked, what are you going to do to fix the gender pay gap? And they're going to say nothing because this doesn't exist. So that sends women into Democrats' wing. Says I'm over crying to the Democrats. What else does it do? Why else would they perpetrate such a myth? How many women's groups are out there? Think about that. How many women's groups, women lobbying groups in Washington alone exist? How much is the salary of the head of NOW? Do you know? It's a lot. And the reason why I say that is because what best way to ensure that these organizations stay funded and pad their own pockets? What's the best way to do that? It would mean perpetrating a myth that cannot be fixed. Ever. Think about how easy that is. Imagine creating a problem that becomes so real. Making up a problem that you turn into a reality simply by talking about it day in and day out and getting enough people to believe it. And then saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's fix this problem. Oh, but we can't because we would, but you're not giving us enough money to fight to fix it. In 2014, the National Organization of Women received over $1 million in contributions. Over $1 million. Think about that for a second. Over $1 million in 2014. And to give you some background, that number actually went up. They were in debt. The National Organization of Women were the foundation was in debt. So, ever since they began to push the narrative of the pay gap, and as it got to its peak, we then saw a contribution increase dramatically from $300,000 and $400,000 in 2008 and 9 to up to over $1 million in 2014. Does that not sound like good business? To me, that sounds like a perfect business proposal. A great business model. Folks, we gotta look deeper. We gotta look deeper. Especially Democrats. It is the funniest thing in the world to watch. They will praise and praise and praise. They will create t-shirts. Mind you, they'll spend $30 freaking on a t-shirt that will say, let's think, or let's not care about what it says, but who's on it. They'll have a picture that says, oh, perfect. What's her name? The Democrat from California, now I am completely forgetting her name. Gosh, that is going to kill me. If anyone, no, that is going to literally kill me. I'm trying to remember her name. She is the one that got Bill O'Reilly in trouble. That is... I can't believe I can't think of the name. I can't think of... It's like Maxine Waters. Woo! Okay, wow. I'm glad I got that, because that was going to figuratively kill me, folks. So, let's say they got a picture of Maxine Waters on their shirts. They'll spend $30 praising Maxine Waters. Meanwhile, Maxine Waters ain't struggling for jack. Maxine Waters is making bank. Not because of her congressional salary, but because of her background. Through the banks. You know, she's making money off of that, you know, backhand bank commission stuff she was doing. Y'all forgot about when she was under investigation by Congress for ethic violations because she was working too closely with a black-owned bank in her district. Y'all forgot about that. She ain't struggling. She got money. She's rich. Telling you that rich people are the reason for your problems. Nancy Pelosi, rich. Chuck Schumer, he ain't crying. He ain't tearing for any money. These folks all got money. All these Democrats in Congress all got money, and they're telling you that people with money are the problem. And you people will buy their shirts. Spend $35 for a shirt that says nasty women. Send it directly to these folks' checking accounts. And then what happens? Nothing. Understand the business model, folks. Republicans play the same game. You heard me go in on them last week. I went on them the last week about always making promises and never carrying it out. If they carry it out, that means they got to run on something different. Isn't that true? That's very true, right? It's much easier to keep problems going. It's much easier to do that. They can just keep on lying. Keep on lying, keep on making up myths. Or they can go down the route of the mainstream media, which is engaging in its misinformation campaign. I'm not sure if you guys heard about this, but a lawsuit has been filed against Fox News alleging that the President of the United States worked with the network to push an already proven to be false story about the killing of a DNC staffer named Seth Rich. And the lawsuit states that the president wanted the story to take attention off of Russia. Misinformation, again. Republicans over here yelling fake news. Trump over here yelling fake news. Meanwhile, he's creating the darn fake news. CNN over here has been pushing the Russia angle since November of 2016, the morning after Hillary lost the election. Literally, as of right now, there have been 3 majorly reported reasons for how the DNC emails were leaked. And each network has its own reason. They're each taking its own path. So, right now, the population at large is confused. I'm sitting here, I was thinking about it yesterday, and I'm trying to understand what exactly. I understand the intelligence community says that we were hacked by Russia, so we know Russia was involved in some form, but was Russia behind it all? Because there's some other people who possibly could have done it as well that have not really been talked about, except for this group of people. The conservatives are talking about. Remember, I brought up the IT staffer who was arrested for bank fraud, who used to work for W. Watchman Schultz, and how he had access to the emails, and how congressional staffers thought the brothers were trying to blackmail Democratic leaders based off of these emails. So you got this guy who's using the emails, possibly, this is possible, of course, not confirmed, but it's allegedly, using these emails to blackmail Democrats in Congress. So they have access to these emails. That's one possibility. Then you have Russia, who hated Hillary Clinton so much that they wanted to ensure that she did not become president by leaking or by hacking into the DNC, stealing the emails, and leaking it through WikiLeaks. And then, well, I'm not even going to go into it because it's already false. They've already said it was false, but another thing that was put out there was the whole Seth Rich stuff. So there's all these things that are sitting out there, and if I was an ordinary voter who wasn't paying attention, I would say, but how do these things connect? Because all these things could be possibilities, and no one's really talking about the IT staffer, but that's a possibility. And so I'm sitting at home trying to figure out, how do you do we just ignore this? Do we just pretend like it didn't happen? Like, pretend like this information has no relevance to the DNC emails? Is that what we're going to do? Because we want to focus on Russia so badly that we're just going to ignore this? And it's frustrating. Because you and I, we want to know the truth. But we won't really know the truth, or really know any hardcore evidence, until Robert Mueller releases his report, which could come out next year. It could be a little bit. We're just waiting and waiting and waiting. But the media doesn't care. The media's not in the waiting game. I remember when they announced that Robert Mueller was going to be the special prosecutor. I remember when they first announced that. I was watching CNN, and they announced it. They had the panel. It was on Anderson Cooper, and the Republicans who were on the panel had all said, you know, the great thing about this is that Robert Mueller is not a leaker, so he's going to get this information, and we're really not going to hear too much. So we should just let this investigation take hold and move forward and not try to influence in any way. Because he's great at his job. I remember that's what Republicans were saying. And I remember Anderson Cooper saying, you're absolutely right, that, you know, Robert Mueller is great at his job. He's well respected by Democrats and Republicans, and he's going to get to the bottom of this without the media. So we're probably not going to be able to report on anything. Lo and behold, they were able to report on something the next week. Why? Because the ratings dropped. The media is going after these stories as hard as they can because they're feeding our desire to know something, even if there's nothing new to know. They're either making up stories to get you to tune in or overhyping the importance of certain findings to make up for the fact that they actually don't have anything new. That's what they do. Their entire business model is based off of viewership. It's based off of advertising. And if you start walking away when someone says, all right, well, the investigator isn't going to be able to have something for over a year, more than likely, why would you tune into CNN every day? It's not like they're going to have anything new. But that's why we have a special prosecutor. Look, the media is going to say and do what it wants. Don't fall for the hype. Fact check everything. Because at this point, we have to assume that there is an ulterior motive for everything in the media. Heck, fact check what I say. We have to do a better job of taking information we hear and see and truly process it by using all of our critical faculties. But that's all for tonight. If you haven't visited my Patreon page, please do and contribute. Every cent that's contributed to this program helps keep me on the air. Helps ensure that we're talking about the things that are affecting all of us. Whether it's social issues, economic issues, whether it's foreign policy, these are issues that affect all of us in some way. And I'm going to keep talking about it. But I'm going to need your help. Anyways, I'll meet you all back here on Friday. Have a great night.
Center for everything that is political and American. You're listening to The Garrison Douglas Show.